Welcome back. This is Inside Politics here on KTN News. Thank you for staying with us. The Mount Kenya region yesterday gave its memorandum for the BBI report in a rally held at the Kinoru Stadium in the county of Meru. A declaration event attended by thousands of Kenyans and a host of leaders saw 11 Gema counties champion the youth agenda. KTN's George Maringa was there.
Kinoru Stadium would play host to the Mount Kenya BBI sensitization rally that brought together all the 11 Gema counties. Delegates and residents started arriving from the wee hours of the morning and filled up the 20,000 capacity stadium before hundreds of elected leaders made their way into what would be a show of unity in the Mount Kenya region.
Sasa wewe mtu wa Mlima Kenya, kama unaona kiongozi wetu wako mbele na mashika bendera, unapotea ukielekea wapi na unaona pali bendera imeelekea?
Itulete one man, one vote, one shilling.
Ripoti hiyo.
The memorandum, which was presented by Nyandarua Governor, who is also the chair of the Central Region Economic Bloc, Francis Kimemia, inclined to address matters youth. In fact, they want youth under 35 years delisted from the CRB.
We further support the delisting of persons under the age of 35, that is the youth, from the Credit Reference Bureau, reservation of that percent of appointive positions to the youth, with 50% positions for the members of county assemblies being reserved for the youth.
The region also wants an increase of funds allocated to counties and creation of a county ward development fund.
We recommend the allocation of no less than 45% of all revenue collected by the national government to counties and the creation of the Mount Kenya Development Authority.
Sasa baba, shika watu wote wa Kenya, na hata sisi wa Mount Kenya utusahau, sisi sote tufike Canaan.
At the rally, leaders called for national cohesion and unity.
Wakati mkiwa Narok, kuna mmoja alisema watu wale watu wa nje hawafai kuchaguliwa waende kwao, na mimi sijui kwangu, shori kwangu ni Meru, wazazi ni hapa.
Tunataka BBI iweze kutusaidia kurainisha wajumbe bungeni.
Visiting leaders from across the country also weighed in on the matter.
National Labor Board ambayo iko kwa sheria iende katika constitution, ndio wabunge wasio wanaamuka usubuhi wanataka kubadilisha sheria ya wafanyikazi bila kuuliza wafanyikazi, bila kuuliza waajiri, bila kuuliza serikali.
Jamii ya Gema, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta na Raila Odinga na hawa viongozi ambaye wako hapa, it is a sure bet.
Na mimi nasema nahusika sana na yale ambayo mnataka. Msimamo wa one man, one vote tunaunga.
To ODM leader Raila Odinga,
nobody can stop reggae.
Despite the perceived tremor on the mountain, the Gema community and counties have given their recommendations in the BBI report, a memorandum that saw all of them converge here in Meru County, and all eyes will now focus to Nakuru County for the next BBI rally. George Maringa, KTN News at Kinoru Stadium, Meru County.
A presentation of the memorandum by the Mount Kenya leaders read by the Nyandarua Governor, Francis Kimemia, highlighting some of the things including going big on devolution, including wanting the creation of a county ward fund. They want the Mount Kenya Development Fund. They also said they support a Prime Minister position with 2 deputies. Those are some of the things that they talked about at the BBI rally in Meru at the Kinoru Stadium. I'm here with humanitarian and development consultants Jorotich Sei and political risk analyst Dismas Makua, and now joined by a lawyer, Ken Echesa. Thank you, Bonakili, for joining us. Maybe I can start with you. What are your reactions to that, to some of those things that were said in Meru?
Meru, I was expecting Meru to be fireworks because we had seen local leaders in Mount Kenya, largely who are allied to the Deputy President, making all forms of threats and innuendos that they'll either boycott Meru or make the mountain not accessible to any person of a contrary view. But what happened in Meru was a show of democracy. It was a show of political maturity, despite the few shortcomings that were there. People missing seats, Kina Murkomen addressing and leaving immediately. Largely, it was a success. And compared to other BBI rallies we've had, I find the presentation of the memorandum from Mount Kenya leaders a bit cogent. When Anne Waiguru is saying, for example, that we should create ward funds, to me, that is the purpose of devolution. Devolution is meant not just to devolve political power, but to decentralize and devolve resources to the ground. If we are moving a fund closer to the people, that is likely to give effect to what devolution requires us to do. I understand that in some counties, such as the Kakamega County and various counties, we've had attempts by governors to create ward funds. But remember, when ward funds are created by governors, they are used to actually blackmail and intimidate MCAs, so that if an MCA is not singing to the tune of the governor, then the governor can reduce it.
All right. Over the last two rallies, Dismas, we have seen the rise of regional, sentiments in terms of region talking about what it wants and what has been wrong and wants corrected using this BBI process. We didn't see much of that, or did you see any of that in Meru?
Well, when you look at the memorandum presented, there is absolutely nothing new. There's nothing which you would say these are eureka moments from Mount Kenya. Because if you're talking about the ward fund, people have said it times above number. If it's about the deputy premier, people have said it's times above number. There was really nothing unique. Even if you're talking about 1 man, 1 vote, or 1 shilling, or whatever it is, there was nothing unique, which is why we keep on saying that these really are not BBI rallies. These are ODM political rallies. People are just masquerading, claiming that it's a BBI. So there was nothing overwhelming. But when you look at the outside BBI, when you look at the color, then it was very exciting. And 3 things stand out. You notice Kiraitu Murungi said that he's not as foolish as he looks, and he said that Raila Odinga wanted to take Kenyans to Canaan, but when they got into River Jordan, they came across the crocodiles, and he said he was delivering President Kenyatta's message that in fact now the crocodiles have been sorted out, and he tells Raila Odinga, do not forget us. So the general assumption is that Mount Kenya is going to support him. That is number 1. But when you speak to people actually on the ground report and the intelligence you get, Raila Odinga knew that he was not going to get a very good reception. Maybe the sore throat was a blessing in disguise. That's why he decided to be a VIP MC, to invite the key leaders to deliver specific messages. And in my view, the only person who appeared really presidential was Musalia Mudavadi, because he spoke to the hearts of Kenya, he addressed critical issues. Then the leader of Wiper, by the name Kalonzo Musyoka, instead of him addressing national issues or Meru issues, he's giving us stories about his role in the South Sudan peace process. He's asking why Kamba is not part of GEMA. He confused that ODM rally as a wiper. I mean, when you have been given 10 minutes to address a national audience, and then your first duty is to introduce members of your delegation, you're telling us the way the president likes you is appointed to South Sudan for a peace process. Those are not the critical issues. There are a number of MPs who actually addressed the critical issues. The area MP spoke about Mira, and you could tell from the audience that those people are happy. Understand, if you're moving Mira from Meru to another county, there's a huge levy. So he spoke to that, and people were excited.
All right.
And then lastly, in my view, for the Tanga players like Kipchumba Murkomen, when he's going to be attending these rallies, he must observe meeting etiquette. That when you're going for this rally, do not wait till everybody's seated, then you check in, you cause a bit of drama, and then when you're leaving, you're causing drama. Even if you do not like Raila Odinga or the other participants, but treat them with a bit of respect. For you, you want everybody else to listen to you, but you don't want to listen to what other people are saying. In my view, really, that's unacceptable, and we shouldn't welcome it.
All right. Jaro, there was more consensus or calmness in that meeting that many would have predicted, given the kind of brouhaha that was before the rally, or was in the run-up to the rally. There were separate meetings by different various leaders from that county, from that region, some calling for this, others calling for this. But in the rally, you could not see that. So would you say there was too much consensus?
Well, maybe too much consensus is how you'd put it. But for me, what I sense is, and I'm not from Mount Kenya, as one would be quick to hasten, but we should all be from Kenya, no matter where we think we hail from. I think the mountain is rumbling. And I asked last week, I said, where is His Excellency the President? And the fact that he does not attend these BBI rallies is very telling to me. He was whipping the MCAs in Nairobi. Surely in his quote, own backyard, shouldn't he have been there? And if not, then I agree with the Duke of Mosocho that these are just ODM campaign rallies. You know, I was also struck by the numbers of people who attended the rally. Much as everyone would like to say it's a success, people came, others are claiming they were paid 500 bob, and there are all kinds of things around it. But what it tells me is that we have very many idle, underemployed, unemployed Kenyans. If, for example, issues of agriculture that we did not need BBI to come and sort out had been resolved, if the cost of power was affordable, wouldn't people be busy with their productive enterprise? So I look at the stories behind the stories. If we are to break down and analyze how it was run, organized, whether people spoke, whether they were in alignment, after all, it's probably our 10 billion shillings that are being used for all of these rallies. So we can do an audit of the process. But I'm looking at the story behind the story. And for me, there's a rumble in that Mount Kenya region. And if President Uhuru cannot even go and address people in Githurai, much less go down to Kirinyaga Road here in town and speak to the Nairobi business community and see what's going on, then there is a problem. As for the Tanga group, I use the Trojan horse analogy. I also use the cattle dip example. If this BBI is a cattle dip that we all must go through, because once you're in a certain way, you cannot reverse because there are other cows behind you and you have to go through. So if you see Tanga arriving to disrupt because they have been told you have to swim through this cattle dip anyway to get to the other hand, then it's all fair game, however they choose to behave. That said, there should be no sympathy for the Tanga side of things, because Tanga and Kieleweke are the same sides of one coin, the Jubilee government that has undermanaged and mismanaged Kenya since 2013. So even if Tanga thinks it's scoring points by dropping some comments, walking out, or by being this, being that, and it is true, we are seeing a habit where Senator Murkomen is actually the man of the moment. He did that in Mombasa, he also did that in Meru. So we're seeing the habit, but it's because you've forced everyone into this particular cattle dip. But ultimately, even if Tanga were to have some kind of ascendancy, we'd still want to ask questions. Tell me about Aurora and Kimorer and so on. So I think that for me as a Kenyan, loose from the dynamics of the actual day, if we're not interrogating, if we have not taken our constitution to go and read and understand what the constitution of Kenya says, and we're here waiting for BBI to light the path, I feel like we're headed down the wrong path. And you remember in Narok, Babu Owino said that BBI is stronger than coronavirus. It makes me wonder, and I say, yes, maybe BBI is not so good for the soul of Kenya. It is divisive, it is contagious, because the types of things that we are hearing, or the actions or the interactions of the political class at that level, show me that Kenya is far from healed. So maybe in actual fact, BBI might be more dangerous than the coronavirus in terms of that existential space and our spiritual space as Kenyans today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's speak to the politics, Ken. This must mention something about Raila Odinga introducing some of these leaders. There's a school of thought that sees that as very strategic by the ODM party leader in terms of, we've seen in past BBI rallies where he's introduced as the last person to speak, and that's the end of it. But he introduced Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, Gideon Moi, and all that. The headline on the Standard is new BBI lineup, power line. I mean, what is your take on this?
My take, and I must credit Standard for being able to predict Odinga. When you look at how Standard reports about Odinga, is either they have an insider or they have a way of scanning Odinga's mind on what is happening. Odinga is very strategic. Hate him or love him, Raila Odinga has 9 political lives. And he has a way of getting a rallying call before every election. In 2002, Raila Odinga came up with the rallying call of Kibaki Tosha, and people were Kibaki Tosha. In 2007, Raila took advantage of the orange symbol that was used in the referendum to come up with the ODM, which now became a movement. In 2013, he picked a rallying point that was counterproductive. the one of the Hague. He was thinking if we take these two people to the Hague, then that one was counterproductive. He has now found a rallying point in this thing called BBI. Whereas the rest of Kenyans are thinking that BBI is about legal reform, Raila has found a political rallying point. And if you are very keen, people who are not going to toe Odinga's line were going to be replaced within these BBI rallies. I'll give you the second example in Kakamega, the second BBI rally in Kakamega. When local leaders were planning to boycott Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula, Raila never bothered about them because he was raising new people. He was raising Cleophas Malala, Osotsi, Raphael Wanjala, new crop of Western leaders. And Wetangula and Musalia realized immediately that if we stay out of the cold and avoid these BBI rallies, by the time the referendum is ended, it will go with us, and a new crop of leaders will emerge. That is why Musalia and Wetangula have been in every rally thereafter. And Raila is now forming a lineup. As they move around Kenya, they are picking key players. And the last BBI rally, in my opinion, will be the rally that will be unveiling the face of Kenya politically within Odinga's mindset. The people he introduced in Meru yesterday were the people he intends to work with, are the people he intends to form the next government with.
All right. Yeah. Do you agree, and where does that leave the narrative that is 2022?
Well, you know, ideally, BBI is supposed to morph into another political party. It's going to be BBI something. It's going to be a political party. But for yesterday, it had nothing to do with something that Chesa says, 9 political lives. When you're going to any place to address a political rally, if you're a politician, you do your groundwork to find out, do people actually like me? Would they like to listen to me? If I start speaking, would they pay attention? Raila Odinga would not have done what he did yesterday if he were in Kisumu or Mombasa, where he knows for a fact that his word is as good as law. If Murkomen had gone to Kisumu and he left the podium midway, not a single soul would have followed him outside his bodyguard and courier. So he knows very well that in as much as he had very strong influence in central Kenya or in Meru, but he knows that if he starts speaking, people will start walking away. So what do you do if you're a clever politician like Raila Odinga? You invite other people who can actually speak. I followed the proceedings A to Z. The only thing Raila said there is that nobody can stop reggae and that the train has left the station, which he has repeated times above number. His entire speech was not even 5 minutes because he knew that if people know that he's the last person to speak, guys might take a walk. However, you must give him credit that these are the very people for the last 50 years have been socialized to believe that this guy doesn't like Mount Kenya.
Right.
If he takes office, he's coming after our wives, properties and land and everything. So even for him to have that kind of an audience, he needs a pat on the back. But he knew people were not waiting for his speech. They wanted other speakers to deliver the messages. And you know, those other people, they delivered the key messages. Like, for instance, you had what Mrathe said, which I thought would be a big thing when he said that Uhuru is not going to hand over to a thief. Maybe the question we should ask him next time is, who is this person who is a thief that at some stage Uhuru was thinking of handing over, and now he has reviewed his position?
So all these things speak to the fact that it's such a battleground, that central Kenya, that Mount Kenya region. Peter Kenneth speaking said that central Kenya makes up 30% of Kenya's population, going again to the numbers, that they should be on the negotiating table. Seeing the kind of shenanigans or these battles that are ongoing in central Kenya, and seeing that the main political protagonists have a say or have some political capital in that region, is that region going to be to decide what happens or who wins in 2022?
The region will have a say on who wins in 2022. More so if they will not be having a candidate on the ballot. The rest of Kenya has been made to believe that Mount Kenya can never support another candidate. Now this is the time for them to demonstrate that they can support another candidate. I do believe that Mount Kenya cannot be ignored for the sake of 2022. Even if people are saying that Uhuru is unpopular in that region, remember Uhuru is a sitting president. And as a sitting president, Uhuru has some following even in my village, where his party community are very unpopular. You'll just get an old man, 2 or 3 people saying, no, me, I work with the system. So to dismiss him in Mount Kenya entirely is to miss the point. Uhuru will have even 10%, even 20%, and in politics, every vote counts. And that is why Odinga really wants to work with Kenyatta. Whether someone goes with 80% and Uhuru delivers him 20%, it is good to that negotiating table.
I would like to say that I wish Baba all the very best in his endeavor. I tend to disagree a little bit with you, Ken, because I think that BBI is not panning out exactly as Baba, as ODM would have liked. Because let's stop pretending that BBI is anything other than ODM rallies. I get the sense that perhaps Right Honorable Raila Odinga begins to see himself as the potential, as the interloper that he always was. Because there was Jubilee, there was Tanga-Tanga Kieleweke factions that developed. The Kieleweke got rid or said, this person called Ruto has become an irritant and needs to be removed. He's no longer featuring in our equation for 2022. Perhaps his voracious appetite for graft, exactly like the current political class, led to a point where they said, we don't want this guy anymore. And now Baba is having a difficult time trying to convince those who had already made pacts, because I see people saying online that they said Kumi for Uhuru, Kumi for Ruto. So there's that group that cannot be denied in Central, in Mount Kenya, that says we made agreements and we need to follow through. And so that's why I say I wish Baba well, winning hearts and minds there, because there are some agreements that were already tasted. And no matter how we try to position President Uhuru Kenyatta as being super strong and preeminent in Mount Kenya, you cannot avoid the undercurrent. But as I said when we talked about Sonko, why are we then trapped into it's either Ruto or Raila? Or we know Uhuru is not coming back. He cannot come back as the president. He might come back as something else, and I say BBI is a succession plan. But why are we also looking at Mudavadi? Why are we also looking at Kalonzo? Why are we looking at Wetangula? Why are Kenyans so imprisoned that we have one particular lineup? And if you stripped all of those individuals, this potential lineup, of their ethnic identity and saw them just as Kenyans, can every single Kenyan speak to what each and every one of that leader has done for them? You see, if you can tell me that Baba, whether he hails from the Luo community or not, has done this for all wa Kenya, whether Ruto, whether Mudavadi, you see, we try to say, oh, let's be cohesive. We need national ethos. But everything in this BBI space is breaking, is balkanizing us back into those spaces. Right. Yet so if there was a way that as Kenyans, we could move beyond, again, the surface debates, the politics at play, to say, what does this mean for me every day, putting food on the table? Then I think we would be taking the conversation one step further. Okay. But I do disagree that it is all smooth sailing and easy going for not as well as they might have anticipated or expected it to go.
Have a final say on this.
Well, you realize one of the key speakers has been Kireti Murungi. And Kireti Murungi, in his the pre-ODM rally yesterday, he said for a fact Mount Kenya knows they're not going to produce the next president. So they want to take advantage of this, I don't know whether it's ODM or BBI, to make sure they secure their economic interests. So in my view, it's agreed that Mount Kenya is not going to produce the next president, and they're looking at building bridges. Whether it's going to be a success, we do not know. And if you control 30% of the voting bloc in Kenya, you cannot afford to be ignored. And that's what Peter Kenneth said, that we must be at the table and be indeed there. But now, that doesn't mean that since you control 30%, then you kick everybody else out of the table. Even in my community, we could be maybe 5%, but every single Kenyan needs to be on that table. Because, you know, we are not making a constitution. Right now, we have an activist constitution. We are not making a constitution for Mount Kenya or Kisii or Elgeyo Marakwet. We want to come up with a governance constitution which recognizes meritocracy. So that it doesn't matter where you come from. After an election, you know your interests are secure.
The Building Bridges initiative juggernaut continues. We will be telling you where it will be going next, and we shall be analyzing what will be coming out of there. A lot of people, including a lot of my panelists, insist there's nothing there's nothing much of substance coming from the BBI rallies. It is a glorified ODM political rally. Anyway, we shall see what will be happening. Stay with us here on Inside Politics when we come